Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the viewer, to hear more from our local candidates about issues that are important to us in our community. We've taken questions via social media, email, we've talked to civic groups, so we've gathered all kinds of good questions to talk with our candidates about. This is all leading up to the general election on November 8th, where we will encourage you to go vote. But the first thing you need to do is get informed, and that's why we're here, and that's why we have today's guest with us. It is Katrisha Waldridge, and she is running for re-election to the City Commission because she's currently one of our commissioners. So let's welcome Katrisha. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good, and I'm glad that you're here with us, so I thank you for doing that. So let's jump right in.
Sure.
Okay.
Thing.
First thing I want you to do is, for some reason, if people don't know you, this is your opportunity to introduce yourself to them and tell them why you're running for re-election for City Commission.
Sure. My name is Katrisha Waldridge. I've lived here about 26 to 28 years, give or take. I'm running for re-election for a third term of City Commissioner. I've been City Commissioner and Mayor Pro Tem, thanks to my colleagues for that vote, and thanks for the Frankfortonians for electing me and me being the #1 vote getter and holding that position and being there when the mayor can't uphold his duties at the time or can't arrive somewhere. But I'm here. I've been honored to run, and I've been honored to serve Frankfort residents, and I'm excited, and I still think there's work to be done. So I'm putting my name on the ballot for another term of 2 years and hoping that I can get some things moving that have been sort of stagnant. My goal now is to sort of close some of those gaps and to go from interest and ideas to implementation and feasibility studies to fruition so that we can improve the quality of life and things here in Frankfort. And so that's my goal, and that's why I'm here to continue running and continue serving.
Excellent. Yeah. So we know there are 6 candidates on the ballot for City Commission. The top 4 vote getters get elected to serve. So what distinguishes you from the other candidates?
What distinguishes me from other candidates? Well, goodness, I'm a feisty one. So I guess what distinguishes is that I'm going into my 3rd term. So I understand what it is to be a city commission for 2 years and then up for a re-election. They're just now finishing, that year. And so being up for re-election, I understand what that is. And I understand where I was when I was in their seat. And I would hope to say that they would say that it's been beneficial to have myself serving with them for the past year and a half to help give them insight on what has occurred in the past. And so I would love to continue to be that conduit of things that have started or, before they came, to continue moving on and seeing some things to fruition. But for me, I'm a very transparent, laid-back person. I like to see what it's for. I want to be able to see everything that's out there, and I also want to talk about it, even if it's the hard stuff, right? And so I want the community to know where their tax dollars are going and what's really going on in Frankfort behind closed doors, as we know that politics can get a little fuzzy. And I'd hate to say it that, we fall in that political line, though we are community servants. And that's what we really need to lead with, and that's what I lead with, of being a public service and not let the political genre of it sort of get entangled with me. I'm very strong. I stand very firm in my beliefs and my visions, and I do a lot of research to let you know when I come to you and I'm speaking, I'm pretty much know what I'm talking about, or I've talked with those people to help me get insight on that. Okay. So that's why I feel like I'd be a great addition to the next commission come up and hopefully do another 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have been around.
Yes.
So you know things that are going on here in town and things that the City Commission is dealing with right now. What would you say is the biggest issue facing the City Commission right now?
The biggest issue. Let's be honest. The biggest issue that we have that is coming up and that should be on our forefront each time that we spend a dollar or each time we think about what we're doing in the next step is, number one, our $4.1 million deficit that we have going into 2024. And that's huge. And that deficit is due to many things, whether that's the occupational tax that has come up some since the COVID has happened, where I think we're down to about 1.5 of being affected by the occupational tax. But we have that, we have the pensions, we have a lot of things we have to take in consideration. So going into that year, $4 million is a huge, heavy blow. And so that we have to take in consideration of whether that's going to be taxes and where we're going to get that money from. That's why it was on the agenda on Monday's meeting, was taxes. And so we have to look into the best way that we can raise money, number one, to clear that $4.1 million deficit. And then also, what are we going to do to bring other activities and things like that into Frankfort, and where do we get that money? So I think, to me, that's probably the biggest issue, because that's a financial blow, which then affects everything else, budget, subsidies,
Right.
things of that nature in our community. So I think for me, that's the biggest issue ahead,
Yeah.
but I think the biggest item on the table is getting shovels in the ground. And I say that meaning projects. So the more projects we can get started, tax money starts coming in, new opportunities for our communities coming in, new businesses, things of that nature that then draws people. And that's the Parsons property over by the old Home Depot that they're moving around dirt and getting roads done and infrastructure, and then also the Parcel B. So those things are really heavy on me as far as issues and big projects going up. So.
And all of this, it revolves around money.
It sure does. That's why I started with number
Right.
one, that $4 million deficit and financial stability.
So let's go back to that first.
Sure.
So we've all heard about the revenue shortfall.
Yes.
We've read about it. We've seen it on meetings. So if elected, what steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
Well, right now, the goal is that we're overcoming from something that no one saw coming. So that's us really digging and seeing what we can do to bring in more money or how we can save. And I think right now what we're doing, and one thing that I've been supporting since my 2019 commission, was pushing to understand our financial background. So I'm not sure a lot of people know, but we have like 70 different accounts, right? And so who can keep up with that? And when you look at 70 accounts, are we really getting everything from our money that we can? Right? So that's why we created a financial committee finally with Miss Alicia, our director. And that financial committee now is looking at our numbers, looking at our accounts to see where we can invest money, a small portion of money, to see how money can come back. And we want to start small, because this is investment's a chance. Sure. But we have to take chances to try to get ahead of that $4 million, and to get ahead so we can have more money coming in. So I think, number one, that we would look to see how we can broaden our horizons as far as investments, and also look to make sure that we are getting the best bang for our buck at each institution that we have accounts and things of that nature. I think that that's first and foremost. And I never want to go to taxes first, right? Never. Because if we're struggling, then the average resident is as well. And so we have to take that in consideration. And so for me, that would be the last place I really want to push.
Yeah.
But if need be, we'll have to work that out and see where we can push and where we can pull. But understanding that a little bit more. And also, we have to be very cognitive of when we hand out incentives. Right? And so incentives take away some of that tax money. When we do incentives, it gives them a break. And then how long do we give them breaks? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? We really have to be very intentional. And when we have that, to make sure that that company or person coming in, that we're very cognitive of that tax break, and making sure that we're gaining other places when we give that tax break. So I think that's long-term planning. And that's some changing in our policies and things of that nature, of what we want when we hand out TIFs or RFPs or anything of that nature. But I think it's going to take a lot, and it's going to be a lot of different places.
Yeah.
So.
You talked about the possibilities, and that you wouldn't want to do any kind of tax increase or anything like that. And I can say that our viewers don't want that either.
Yes, that is correct.
Because we're all experiencing
Yes.
right now a time of
Definitely.
very high inflation.
Definitely.
And when you talk about multiple tax increases, like were discussed,
Yes.
Monday night, that's going to directly impact our residents.
Yes.
So what belt tightening could you as a commissioner advocate for to make sure the city is not spending money it doesn't have, so that the city commission can also live within the measures just like constituents have to?
Definitely. And so one thing we have to understand as commissioners and as the mayor is that we have to understand that it's your taxpayers' money. It's not our personal account. And just because we see something that looks pretty or a great idea to put money toward it. And I think we have to make sure that we're making those smart decisions. We have to, for me, one thing that I continue to say is from here on out, when we're spending money, we need to see how we can get $1 or $2 back on every dollar we spend out. And if that's not feasible, then we should not be spending it right now because we are $4 million in the hole in 2024. And so for me, moving forward, it would be, I guess, cutting where we don't need.
Yeah.
Being very open and honest about feasibility studies.
Sure.
As you were aware, we have a ton of feasibility studies.
Right.
We have evaluations and everything. They cost $30, $50, so many $1,000s.
Yeah.
And so we have to understand, do we already have that study?
Yeah.
Is that study feasible for us right now?
Yeah.
Is that a study that we could go in with the county to help with? So for me, there's a lot of different things that we can take in consideration.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is making sure that the board is on board.
Right.
And for me, I'm only one vote. So there's been
Right.
many expenditures that I voted against that I think should not,
Right.
here and there. But again, I'm only one vote. And so whatever that 3 vote gets, I think that's it. But I think what I'm starting to see more is community taking initiative and taking initiative to say our voices are not being heard.
Yeah.
You're not doing what is feasible and what is possible for this community, and sort of creating their own, like a DIG. I'm amazed that DIG came together with so many professionals and so many people wanting Frankfort to grow. And so they were like, well, our voice isn't being heard. So guess what? We're going to do our own group, and then we're going to get together and have a louder voice and some more strength to be able to move forward and hopefully get leaders to listen to them to move forward. And so to me, I think that's what's happening now. And I think some decisions are a little slower made because the residents are getting in on the conversation and understanding. So.
Well, kind of what we've been talking about, it's all about working within a budget.
Yes.
And sticking to that.
Yes.
So, what experience do you have outside of city government with large budgets? Because, the budget for the city is, tens of millions of dollars.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's important that, people know how important that is and have experience working with large budgets.
Yes, definitely. So I would have to say that the city is probably my largest budget that I've had a lot of hands-on with and had a lot of say over. And that's why I do ask quite a few questions to Alicia.
Sure.
And throw out ideas. And I also call other financial people here in the community and other people that I know to ask those hard questions because I don't know everything about a budget.
Yeah.
But what I can say is I've worked with a budget at American Cancer Society and did very well there in increasing our budget there as far as the foundation was concerned and donations coming in. I've also worked at Kentucky State University on budgets there and found some, of course, discrepancies and things there. And we changed those and got things moving in the right direction when we were there. And I was underneath of the supervision of Dr. Aaron Thompson at the time when he was our interim president. So I got to work a lot with budgets there with the alumni in that office. And so for me, I'm not scared of numbers by all means, but I will sit down, look at them and look them over and run them by different people because it is a very serious matter. And anything that affects the city affects every single person in this community. And every dollar that person is paying out in taxes or services, we need to make sure that they're getting the best services for every dollar they're getting out, but also making sure that they're getting the best quality of life for anything that we're doing in the city and that it does affect them. And misspending is not okay in this city, especially when it's not our personal dollars.
Right. Well, and a lot of this we've talked about just finding the need to be more efficient in our use of stuff. So some people would say that a really good idea for efficiency is possibly mergered government.
Oh, goodness. Did you say that, Emma?
Yes. So, do you think it's time to revisit that issue just to be more efficient?
I wouldn't be opposed to revisiting that. However, over the couple of years, I've been really on a seesaw of that because I think right now we're doing well and KLC does not support, of course, merged government, Kentucky League of Cities. And I support the reasons why. And I definitely will say that for our community, it is a very small community when you look at the county and the city.
Sure.
we're in both, you know?
Yep.
And so for me, there are areas right now that I do believe that we should come together and partner on, or, such as our parks area. When you're looking at that, they have one park. And to me, I just think it would be feasible for us to come together, one, move forward and have great ideas for all of our park systems. So I think in ways that we could be maybe in the right direction, but I also want to respect the county residents that, are like, hey, we don't want our taxes to go up, if we merge.
Yeah.
And that's a goal for us, that if that's something that our future looks in, that's something your commission and your staff works on together to try not to make that happen, but still be able to give the services to both communities if we were to come together as one. So I'm not opposed to it, but it would be something I'd have to definitely sit down and look through. But I do think that there's a ton of ways right now that we can partner beyond just the fire and police and things of that nature, which we do. But I think there's other ways that we can partner that can help save money, but also bring in more money to this community and be able to offer our residents better services, more opportunities, such as parks and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And so I've always said that it needs leadership. It needs the right leadership to do that. And it's a leadership that's a servant leadership and not one self-serving. And so when I see that, I would feel more comfortable with saying that we can merge and work together and not pull this way or want a pat on the back for this person and vice versa.
Yeah.
I'm not the first ones to be in front of a camera to want my picture taken, but I am the first to be a loud voice to say what's right and what's wrong. And so once you see your leadership moving in the right direction, that they're already working together simultaneously, easy, it doesn't take a year to meet with the county or the city because of the mayor or the judge or whoever, that's when you're having something that is coming together. They're, it's a conduit that will then make them work better together. And when I see that, I would feel more, more abreast to entertain that idea and see that as being a positive. But right now, I still feel that there's still space in between us and the county, and it's hard to mend that bridge because someone wants to be noticed over the other is the way I see it.
Okay.
So.
Well, merger aside, what are some ways that the city and county can work more together, closely together to be more efficient?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I know that since I've been on, and I know that Michael Mueller is huge on this, is just meeting with the county to have those meetings, right? Yeah. Having those meetings to see what they're working on. How can we help you? Can we write a grant with you that will make it stronger because city and county are coming together? And so for me, just being able to meet to see what they're doing, what we're doing, how can we help each other? The county has its own road department, right? And so the city doesn't have that. We go out for contracts. And so, there's different things to say, hey, if there's the pothole and we can't get to it and it's huge and it's a worry in our community, we should be able to call in the county and say, hey, can you help us out really quick? Like, this is a huge issue. But I also think, like I said, in parks, it's huge. We have a huge park system, and we have so much opportunity with that. And we have one that's like, oh, Lakeview, we want this and that, and now it's on standstill. And then we're looking at Capitol View, and we're looking at all these other little parks, and it just feels like that we're just pulling and tugging and trying to get in front of each other to see who can do it first and who can say, oh, I did it for Frankfort, instead of saying, it doesn't matter who does it. It just needs to be done. Right. So let's work together. And so for me, that's probably my huge outcome of merge and working together in ways that we can work together right now.
Right. Well, being on the city commission means that you are approached, the group is approached. People ask, they have requests, they have projects, they have things going on. And all of that includes money, funding.
Yes.
So as commissioner, how will you handle these requests, and how have you handled these requests? And what are your priorities for investments in our community?
Well, I think right now, as requests come in, as they do, and a lot right now with our subsidies as far as like the Humane Society, the Animal Shelter, the Humane Society, the Women's Shelter, Simon House, all of those, they're really hurting as well. And so for me, I have to weigh out what needs to now and what is an emergency now. And so when those requests come in, that's what I go to first. I feel right now in my stance that we have done plenty for the Humane Society. And right now my concern is people. going into the winter, our homeless people. And so I have to look at what's going to help our community, what's going to help our people in our community, and the quality of life. Also, other things come in of turfing fields and repairing things at parks and doing of that. So we have to see, what we can do. I know that I made the request to pave the tennis courts over at Juniper Hills. And my goal, I heard through several conversations that the placement of that may not be feasible of the land. And so for me, that was a concern. So I pumped the brakes when I heard that, because I'm not a land person, but when I hear there could be a concern, don't repave or resurface anything until we know that that's not an issue. If so, then we need to move that tennis court somewhere else and plan for something else there, because if the land is the issue underneath of that surface, we need to address that and stop just continuing to put money in and put Band-Aids on things. And that's one thing I want us to do moving forward, is stop putting Band-Aids on some of these things that the community needs just to suffice, and let's start redoing them from the ground up so we can have things that are quality for our community and not continuing to put Band-Aids on things. And so for me, that's the goal for income, for requests coming in. And I think you had a second part of that question.
Your funding priorities.
My funding priorities right now, are economic development, definitely, and the relationship with Kentucky State and the town gown, and our park system. So that's two of my huge priorities right now, and really keying in for money.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned those, because those are my questions are coming for those.
Awesome.
So let's talk about economic development.
Sure.
First of all, how would you define economic development?
Oh, goodness. Terry. I would say, economic development is basically bringing in jobs, bringing in those workforce that is going to bring in taxes for our community, and bring in those people who are going to be paying an occupational tax, and bringing in things for the community, as far as I'm concerned. When I look at economic development here, everyone continues to push infill, and Terry continues to say that's not, economic development.
Yeah.
And I say that infill comes with economic development. When you bring in economic development, you bring in the industries, you bring in these jobs, you bring in people who can afford to shop. More people are going to come in and want to do those infill positions and infill places, and put small shops and things of that nature, because now you have a workforce that can actually spend money. Yeah. And so to me, it's two different areas, but for me, it's pulling in that economic development. It's recognizing where we're headed. Terry has continued to tell us we're out of space over in industrial. And I don't think she has to tell us too many times for us to say, where do we go now?
Right.
And not wait 10 years to say, where do we go now? And so the goal is looking at between Frankfort and Lawrenceburg, to me, is prime property for us to look in to see if that's where the next industrial area comes in for Frankfort, and making sure we're ready. I know I met with sewer, and the sewer department is probably one of the most ready departments for growth in Frankfort and for industry to come in. So I think that's sort of where we're pushing. It's not my forte, Kathy, by all means. So I am on the phone a lot with Kathy. I am talking to people in DIG. And I actually, I did want to join DIG, but I'm a politician and I can't. But I told them anytime that they need me to come to a meeting, let me know things. I am always open to have that communication with DIG or anybody else in this community in regards to economic development.
Right.
I read through Terry's emails and things of that nature to try to get more of an understanding, because that's my duty. If it's not my forte and it's not my background, you have to do the research and have those conversations to have a little bit more understanding of it.
Okay. Well, just you've mentioned it several times. So for those who don't know, DIG is the Developers Interest Group, Development Interest Group. And that's here in Frankfort. It's a group of developers who've gotten together to talk about the issues and businesses and other people who are interested in growing our community. So that's what DIG is.
Yes, it is. And they're going to become their own organization with their bylaws and things of that nature. So they'll be a full-blown organization. I'm not sure what the details are to join, but I'm sure you can reach out to someone if you'd like to join or interested in joining. So,
and then you made mention to Terry.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, Terry Bradshaw is the president of the Kentucky Capital Development Corporation here in town. That is our economic development organization for Franklin County.
That is correct.
So I want to ask you about that. What do you think the KCDC role is here in Frankfort for economic development, and how does it fit in with your vision of economic development here in our community?
Well, I think for the most part, KCDC, their role, number one, from creation, has been to move economic development forward amongst the arguing and the uneasies of a commission. As you can see, our commission, a lot of times we don't agree on things. Sometimes we're talking for things for months or even years. I mean, we talked about chickens forever, right? So it was created so our economic development does not become stagnant because we have people arguing on boards and commissions to hold that. And so to me, that makes sense. Let's move it forward. The confusion comes in where our board is that the plan that they have to move forward was created by commissions prior. Again, that's issues that you're going to have that we know are going to rise because we change every 2 years. It's a possibility of changing every 2 years of that. So for me, it just needs to be more communication and to know what that plan is. And if they want to change that plan, what are the goals and aspirations to change that plan, and how do we do it, and can we sit around a table? Yeah. But the way that we've gone about it this time, to me, I think has been too long. Yeah. I've asked our mayor to sit down a few times with Terry before office and after, and it's taken us almost about a year or something, a little over a year, to have some conversations. And we continue to point fingers of saying what they're doing wrong, but we're not sitting down to say, what are you doing wrong? What are the expectations of the city, right? And so for me, that's how I want to know whether or not I want to continue moving on with KCDC and what they're supposed to do and continue to push our economic development forward or dissolve, because there's so many things in the KCDC. I'm sure you're probably going to ask more questions on this, and I'm probably answering some, but I'll stop because I have a feeling you're going to ask another.
Well, again, speaking of KCDC, so it's partially funded by the City Commission.
It is indeed.
Is that something that you would continue to support?
I think right now we have to, and I think moving forward we have to. And I know there's been a lot of talk of dissolution of KCDC and a lot of talk that, some people want a new director and things of that nature. And I'm just not one to make quick decisions until I know exactly what's what and where we're going to move forward. And we haven't had those conversations yet. And I will tell you, the KCDC and that paperwork I've read through, it is very confusing on how it was incorporated and how all these things are and FACIDA and all these other entities in it. Is that, for me, I just want to have a clear understanding. But KCDC has been doing this for Frankfort for a few years. And I look at it that no matter how bad that our commission or our mayor wants to bring in an engineer or an economic development person for our community, which would cost us hundreds of thousands for a professional one that knows what they're doing, is that person would have to come in. They'd have to get to know everyone that Terry knows and everyone that's connected and be able to start those relationships again. So even if dissolution was on the table for us, dissolution should not come anytime soon, nor should the defunding of KCDC come anytime soon. Because if you really are adamant and serious about your economic development, you will have what is an overlapping of anything. You can say you're going to maybe dissolve in 5 or 6 years, but you should never just say, oh, I'm going to cut loose, because when we had the company come and do an overview of our options of KCDC, I felt like they only brought options of dissolution. Never say that we're trying to figure out something and only bring the negatives of dissolution. I need to know what we can do positive to move forward if dissolution isn't on the table. So I was a little turned off by that, and I spoke my mind on that. And then I also let them know, I don't see anywhere in the research that we paid this professional firm, to do all these things that say anywhere in here that if we dissolve and we don't pay money into it, what about the 50% tax that we share? I mean, if I was the county, I wouldn't share that with the city, right? If you're not paying in and helping. So those things have been overlooked, even by professionals that we've paid thousands of dollars for. And that understanding, to me, needs to come to full circle. It needs to be an overlapping thing if it's going to ever be a dissolution. But moving forward, I think right now we have a lot of connections, a lot of connections with Andy Barr, who helped us with the Tiger Grant, or with the transit when Keith Parker was here. And she has a lot of people in networking in DC. And to me, that's what Frankfort needs and Kentucky needs, is good people who have those connections that can help us. But just wanting to dissolve something without a plan is reckless. And we don't need reckless right now in Frankfort in regards to economic development.
Okay. Well, we're starting to run out of time. I think we're there. But I do. Let me get one more question in before I turn it over to you. Part of the city commission's duty, they make a lot of board appointments.
Yes.
So the way the process is now, are there any changes you would make to that, or is there a way that it could be done better? And what requirements do you look for in board appointments and commission appointments?
Well, that's many questions, so I'm going to have to go back. What I would say is, yes, I think there are some things that need to be changed, and that would probably lead more so for the mayor and whatever that 3 vote is. But I look at it as we are a board of 5 people, 4 commissioners and a mayor. We all have the same power. We all have the same entity of wanting to do great for the community. So for me, when it goes to the mayor for him to bring back who he suggests, to me, that's a little personal, that's political. And that was something before our commission and before the next and things of that nature. But I think it tends to lean in that political area. And that's what our community doesn't want. It gets us in situations we're in now of where we're fighting and not coming to a decision of planning and zoning and things like that. And so for me, our area, no matter what anyone says, is very political. It's political from our mayor. It's political from the judge. It's political all the way up to our governor. And I say that because it is important that we get the right people on these boards that know what they're doing, that have that background, and that have the best interest in Frankfort. And when I say it goes all the way up to the governor, our governor, he has an appointment on our planning and commission. And so that appointment, he appointed Bill May, our previous mayor, and everyone wasn't completely happy with where we are in economic development and being stagnant during his time of service. And so for us, we have to have that relationship with the governor and other people so they can communicate with us saying, hey, I've got to make an appointment to this board and I need your advice on it. And not just to throw someone on there. And then we're like, why would you put him on there? We've been stagnant for 30 years and you put our leader that's been here. And, that doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
And so for me, that comes with relationships. It comes with understanding that our board appointments are for community and for progression. I'm not here to be everyone's friend. I'm not. And some of my friends probably don't need to be on boards.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But if I know someone, I'm going to do the background. I'm going to ask around to prominent people in this community. And I've had a huge advisory committee in my 4 years and will continue. And I mean, it's from the Democratic side. It's from the Republican side. It's from the independent. It's from students who can't even vote yet. I get information from all these people. So I do think that it is very political. The political portion needs to be out of it. We as commissioners, for our votes for the city, need to have a little bit more say on that and definitely a little bit more intake. It's a shame that when people come to me and say they want to serve on a board, I say, well, send your information to the mayor. But don't tell him I sent you because you probably won't get put on. That should never come from my mouth, right? Yeah. And so for me, that's more political than looking at the person. Yeah. And, I look at this when we did the Parks Board, that was an issue. It came up and I wanted to put someone in the Parks Board in the Dolly Graham area. We've had a lot of issues in the Dolly Graham area and a lot of people thinking we were looking over them, and I wanted them to know, I want to put someone in your community on this. And it took the mayor over a year to put someone from the Dolly Graham community on the board because, to me, of political reign. And it's just nonsense, and we can do so much better. And so that's how I think about it. It's political. I don't know what the end of question. I don't know. Did I get the end of that question?
You answered kind of what you look for in board members' requirements.
Yeah, I just, what, their honesty, their tenacity of wanting to see this community grow in the right manner and wanting the best for the community and being able to be themselves and not be twisted or entangled with other people to try to get a decision and they don't even know what the decision is, but they're just going to say it. So for me, people that are willing to talk to us, sit down with us, meet with us, I mean, I think I've met with everyone. I do. I meet with anyone and everyone, just like with city commissioners. I didn't know Mr. Kastner, and I met with him, and I want to meet and know people who are going to be leading with me, working with me, dedicated to move Frankfort forward, and I want to get to know people. So
okay. Well, we appreciate you being here. I'm going to give you the opportunity to directly address our viewers and so that you can tell them why they need to vote for you on November 8th.
Sure. Well, I wrote a little thing down so I wouldn't forget anything.
Okay.
So first and foremost, Kathy, thank you so much for having us. I truly appreciate being here. I appreciate all the other candidates that come and give you their time. And just thank you for Frankfort It's been an honor of serving you the last 3.5, almost 4 years. I am asking for your vote once again for re-election to continue to stand firm for our community, push forward and through the obstacles that continue to hold us still, to be open and honest and transparent to the operation of this city and financial expenditures, and continue to be your voice and make the best ideas for Frankfort so that they are evolving and thriving, and we welcoming a healthy community for you, me, and our neighbors. It's time that we close the gaps of intentions to feasibility studies to fruition. And it's physical time. It's time now physically to put a shovel in the ground for new opportunities for Frankfort. So I would be so grateful and so honored for your vote in the general election. So please vote Katrisha Waldridge as your next city commissioner, because I know we can get through this and we can get there to where we need to be together. Thank you once again for allowing me to serve you for these last 3.5 years, and I do look forward to hopefully serving you another 2. So thank you so much. You can reach out to me at any time on our website, on the city's website, for my email, which is kwaldridge@frankfort.ky.gov, or you can reach me on my cell at 502-219-7449. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Katrisha, for coming today and taking some time to talk to our viewers, talk about some of the issues, and just really inform people before they go vote. So thank you.
Yes, if they have any other questions, they can always feel free in between now and that voting election to reach out to me, and I'll give them more information or answer any questions they want. So thank you for always of being the voice for the people and allowing us this opportunity.
Okay. Well, I also want to thank our viewers for watching. We appreciate you tuning in and getting more informed about our local candidates, because that's really important, because it's time to go vote on November 8th. So go do that on November 8th. And then when you're done, go home, turn it on Channel 10, and watch all of the live election returns. We'll be bringing you play-by-play from the county clerk's office that night on November 8th. So do that. It's election season. This is what we do during election season. So I encourage you to go vote, because it is your voice, and I want you to use it.